My own blood turned against me over money. Family was supposed to be my rock. It was supposed to mean safety and love, a fortress against the world. Mine looked like that, a facade of shared joy and trust. But I knew better. Beneath the surface was a crushing weight of expectations, favoring my sister, the family's precious gem. I was always in her shadow, the one who held her up. The day she demanded $20,000 wasn't shocking because of the amount, but because it was expected, almost casually. Refusing her wasn't just about money. It was defiance, a tear in the fabric of my family's hierarchy. I felt my heart pounding, a visible rebellion against years of silent compliance. In that moment, I didn't just say no to my sister. I said no to everything they'd ever made me feel and become. "You've always been selfish," my mother sputters, hands trembling as she clutches a rag. "But this is an unforgivable betrayal." Her words slice through the stale kitchen air, each syllable hanging sharp and heavy between us. I can't bring myself to look at her directly. The worn-out apron tied around her waist, the familiar pattern of tiny sunflowers, always felt like a comfort. But now, it's just a barrier between us, a fragile facade of the life we used to know. The table feels like an ocean, vast and unending, separating their side from mine. My father's eyes are steel, unblinking and cold. He's the pillar, the unmovable force in our family. But today, that strength feels more like a wall. I can hear his breathing, low and measured, like a metronome keeping time in this symphony of conflict. "Why? Why would you do this to us?" Mom continues, her voice cracking as if each word is a betrayal she's been forced to speak. I watch her as she wrings her hands. The rag, now twisted beyond recognition, hangs limp from her grip. Her fingers are shaking, not from fear, but from a rage born of desperation. I glance at Dad, hoping for what? A flicker of understanding, perhaps. Some sign that he's on my side, or at least willing to consider my side. But his expression remains impassive. He leans back in his chair, arms crossed, like he's already passed judgment and sealed it with an invisible stamp. I didn't plan for this. I say finally, my voice barely above a whisper, the words dripping with the weight of a lie. I know that isn't entirely true. Somewhere deep inside, I'd known it would come to this, even if I'd shoved that knowledge into the darkest corners of my mind. I couldn't continue living a life I didn't choose. And we chose this life for you. His voice is like gravel, each word heavy with the accusation I dreaded facing. Dad shifts slightly, the old wooden chair complaining under his weight, amplifying the suffocating silence. "No," I reply, throat tightening. "But you expect me to live the life you've envisioned, as if it's the only path worth following." The silence between us is louder now, a tremendous, roaring beast. My mother's eyes flicker with an unfamiliar hardness, the warmth I grew up with now shadowed by expectation and disappointment. "You've broken our trust," she says, her voice as thin as the veneer of calm she clings to. "Everything we've done, everything we've sacrificed for you, and you throw it away? For what? For who?" Her question isn't rhetorical, but I've no answer that will satisfy. I chose a different path, one that diverged sharply from theirs, and now the distance between us feels irreparable. "When you're older, you'll see this mistake for what it is," Dad says, closing his eyes in weary resignation. His voice is unyielding, each word a chisel carving away at whatever hope I held on to. I don't reply. I can't. Instead, I reach for the edge of the table, feeling the familiar grooves etched by years of family meals, shared stories, and laughter. But that warmth, those memories, feel eerily distant. As I stand, the chair scrapes along the tiled floor, its protest echoing in the tense silence. "You're my family," I say, voice catching in my throat. "But you're expecting me to live a life that strangles me." I pause, hoping somehow, miraculously, for a sign that this chasm isn't as deep as it feels. But there's only the unyielding silence, my mother's averted gaze, my father's closed-off expression. No hand reaches out to bridge this gap. "I have to go now," I murmur, stepping back from the table, from them, from the life they wanted for me. Each step feels like another fracture, another undeniable move away from the center I once knew so well. The door softly clicks behind me, and I'm alone with my thoughts, the chilling sting of finality settling in. The room is a silent witness to my past, walls still coated in the dreams of a child. I'm crouched by the closet, enveloped by a haze of dust and distant memories. Each item I touch feels like pulling at an overgrown root, reluctant to leave the earth it's buried in. In my hands is a shirt from a concert 10 years ago, its faded fabric a testament to nights lit by music and unrestrained youth. My fingers work methodically, folding, but my mind drifts. The muted voices of my parents seep under the door, just low enough that I can't make out the words, yet I understand the tone, concern veiled in practicality. They're talking about me in that detached way, as if I'm already a topic of the past. My throat tightens reflexively, an involuntary response to being an outsider in my own home. It's like I'm both here and not here, existing in this room that no longer fits me. The air in the room is thick, flavored with the scent of old books and teenage secrets. My gaze flits to the posters that still cling to the walls, edges curled but steadfast, remnants of a time when the world seemed colossal and conquerable. Each memento I touch feels heavy, a piece of my history demanding acknowledgement before I can let it go. Methodically, I move to the desk drawer, pulling it open to reveal a cluttered sanctuary of forgotten artifacts, a broken watch, crumpled notes passed in classes, and a half-used pack of gum long expired. I let my fingers roam through this chaos, finding a strange comfort in its familiarity. It's bittersweet, the way memories both warm and bite at the same time. Yet, even amidst this nostalgia, there's a quiet determination building within me. I've crossed an invisible line, the decision made. This packing isn't merely an act of leaving, it's an exodus. One by one, I tuck away remnants of a life once lived fully here. Each item folded away whispers its own goodbye. In a moment of stillness, I pause, hands resting on the duvet. The weight of what I leave behind presses heavily against my chest. The murmuring voices outside my door have stopped, replaced by a stretched silence thick enough to cut through. It's almost as if the house itself is holding its breath, waiting for me to make the final move. But before I can let the nostalgia drown me entirely, I pull myself upright. There's a resolve that wasn't there before, an understanding that this departure is necessary. Not a betrayal, but a right. A way to grow beyond these four walls that stopped feeling like home a long time ago. I zip the suitcase with a finality that echoes through the room. Turning, I take in the empty spaces left behind, the absence more powerful than the presence ever was. The suitcase in hand carries more than just belongings. It holds the weight of my past, compacted and contained, ready to be released into the unknown of what's next. In that moment, a quiet resignation settles over me. This is no longer just about leaving. It's about stepping into a future with no safety net, where I write my own stories without the shadow of expectation. I glance back one last time, imprinting the image of the room into memory, the silence now a companion rather than an enemy. With a deep breath, I pull open the door, leaving the room open and exposed, inviting light into corners long neglected. As I step out, the door clicking gently shut behind me, I feel the tether slowly unravel, setting me free. The sound of gravel crackling under her tires announced my sister's arrival, like a storm whispering its stealthy advance over a sleeping town. I watched from the shadow of the porch, feeling the raw wood beneath my fingertips. She parked with the same arrogance she wore, like a perfume, overpowering, nauseating. Her face a perfect mask of innocence, perhaps not so much practiced as perfected over years of want without consequence. She climbed out of the car and sauntered over, her steps deliberate and unhurried. I could feel the chill of the evening air seeping through my shirt, wrapping around my spine, the tension coiling tighter with each step she took toward me. "Hey," she said, her voice a pitch of lightness that clanged against the gathering storm between us. I nodded, words clinging to my throat like stubborn ghosts. Unwilling to cross this fragile boundary of silence, we both seemed hesitant to break. The familiarity of her presence was a heavy mantle, a reminder of every time she'd sidled up with charm as slippery as it was sweet. I could sense the maneuvering behind her eyes, a deceptive dance of familial obligation and personal desperation. She leaned against the porch railing, her body language as open and inviting as a lioness at rest. "So, I've been thinking," she started, careful, measured. Her gaze darted, a practiced act of vulnerability, as if seeking an ally in the growing dimness. I really need your help with this. Think harder, I replied, the words dry, tumbling out like stones. Her lips twitched, the mask of innocence rippling just a fraction, but she caught it swiftly. It's not that much, she pressed on, adjusting her narrative with a deftness born from years of manipulation. I wouldn't ask, but you know how things have been. I knew all right. But this time, it wasn't going to work. The realization of that emblazoned itself across my skin, hot and purposeful. Her casual dismissal of the storm she'd ignited baffled me. Did she not see the fractures her requests left behind each time I caved? Or was it that she simply didn't care? This isn't about money. It never was, I told her, the assertion cooling my nerves like a bomb. The truth sharp but necessary. It's about everything you think you can take without giving anything back. Her face, flawless in its usual placidity, tightened for a heartbeat, a glitch in her practiced serenity. I watched as she recalibrated, the cogs turning behind her eyes, her brows knitting for the briefest moment before half arising in that way she had when she feigned hurt. Let's not do this, okay? Her voice was gentle, placatory, designed to soothe, but I was beyond yearning for comfort disguised as lies. It's just this once. I'm trying here. Trying. Her best offense was often cloaked in that word, a declaration of innocence that she wielded like a shield. How familiar I'd grown to its shape, yet how distant it felt now. Trying to me didn't mean pushing, taking, then taking some more. Silence stretched between us, taut and intimate like an oath or a wound. Her eyes scanned mine, searching for any flicker of weakening, but I stood firm, a pillar against her tide. Not this time, I whispered, though the words burned with far greater force. It marked a moment of reckoning, the whispered shunting of a seismic emotional shift. Her composure fractured for a breath, her fair-weather sincerity now laid bare and bleakly failing under the weight of our reality. She pulled back slightly, a retreat more profound than physical distance. The quiet stretched out, spilling into the space between our hearts. Her gaze dropped for a moment, conceding the unspoken truth. And then, with a resigned sigh that felt like a farewell, she turned back toward her car, leaving me enveloped in the dusk, the resolve that had taken root in me solidifying with every ounce of fading daylight. I pressed the gas pedal just a bit harder, watching with a hollow satisfaction as the house shrank into a blurred speck behind me. The rearview mirror framed it perfectly, a snapshot of a life I was determined to leave behind. The tires hummed along the road, their vibration a comforting lullaby that tried to untangle the knots in my chest, but each mile further away only tightened them at first. A gnawing sense of finality clung to the chilly air that seeped through the car windows slightly cracked. It mixed with the lingering scent of vanilla air freshener, a feeble attempt to mask the unmistakable whiff of old leather and my own nervous sweat. I could still feel the echoes of shouting, the cutting words that had become the cruel soundtrack of home, bouncing off the inner walls of my skull. I adjusted the mirror slightly to obliterate that view entirely, hoping it would help erase the echoes too. In the passenger seat lay my hastily packed duffel, its presence a testament to this impromptu escape. It sat like a silent companion, filled with the barest essentials, yet the weight it bore was so much larger than the sum of its contents. A spare change of clothes, a toothbrush, a crumpled photo of happier times. Basics for survival. That's what I had become, someone who learned to live on the basics. The asphalt unspooled endlessly before me, a ribbon of possibilities neither charted by GPS nor guarded by familiar landmarks. In those moments, I realized how I was driving towards freedom even if I hadn't figured out how it looked yet. A low, comforting hum from the engine set my thoughts adrift, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that had often blanketed the house I left behind. The sun began its descent, casting elongated shadows that danced erratically across the dashboard, mocking the uncertain, untethered path ahead. I imagined each shadow as an unspoken expectation, a broken promise surrendered to the road's vastness. Lonely country lanes lined with wilting autumn trees bore witness to my flight, whispering their approval in the rustling of leaves. Each passing second stretched into quiet eternity, and I tried to embrace the calm, allowed it to seep into the crevices fear and doubt had gouged deeply over years of familial servitude. It wasn't easy to sever the old ties, as frayed and toxic as they had become. Yet, paradoxically, each new mile bore a lightness, a silent promise of rebirth. I felt it in the way my shoulders gradually eased themselves from around my ears, the way my grip on the steering wheel relaxed. The inside of the car was cloaked in an almost sacred silence now, with only the sporadic whooshes of passing cars to break the spell. This is where I begin to belong to me. I found myself whispering into that silence. The words felt foreign yet profoundly necessary, evaporating into the air, shared only with the streetlights flickering to life. A new day married with the end of an old one. As the horizon absorbed the last vestiges of sunlight, merging seamlessly with the night, I finally felt what I could only describe as hope. Delicate, hesitant, as if waiting for permission to take full form. Behind me lay years of unmet expectations and an endless masquerade. Ahead, a great unknown. Yet both felt like parts of a whole, stitched together in the fabric of my escape. I knew without glancing back again that the mirror, once an inescapable prisoner of my past, was now rendered useless by choice. Eyes fixed firmly forward, I drove on into the waiting night, hanging on to a slender thread of determination as the haunting past slowly unraveled into the distance. Emptiness isn't a void, it's a canvas. That's what I tell myself as I place the battered cardboard box down on the scuffed hardwood floor of the apartment. Dust motes swirl lazily in the stream of afternoon light filtering through the single window, casting a sepia haze over the room. This place, so hollow and resonant with nothingness, seems to echo with my own newfound solitude. I drag the box to the corner, its weight marking the floor with a faint scrape. Here I am, settled into this modest space, each bare wall a testament to my independence and my detachment. The silence is almost oppressive, yet oddly comforting, like a heavy blanket wrapped tight when the world outside feels just a little too much. My breath catches slightly, a visceral realization settling in my chest. I'm cut off. Not just metaphorically, but truly, tangibly cut off, tetherless and adrift. My ties, both financial and emotional, severed with a dull thud of finality. It's strange what family means when you step outside its warm, enclosing circle. A shield from life's harsher winds, yes, but also a shadow casting doubts on your own strength. I wander through the apartment, fingertips grazing the textured wallpaper, my mind a flurry of what-ifs and maybes. The space feels both vast and intimate, like it's waiting for me to claim it, or perhaps for it to claim me. Each step echoes a hollow note of uncertainty. The floor is creaking underfoot as if whispering secrets of past tenants who maybe, like me, stumbled in search of something, or fled from something they couldn't quite escape. I pause, leaning against the window sill, gazing out at the city sprawling beneath a canopy of dull clouds. The muted murmur of traffic below is a reminder of life carrying on, indifferent to my internal upheaval. I watch the people passing by, each one a bubble of their own worries and stories, feeling simultaneously connected and detached from this thrumming, vibrant sea of humanity. A tear pricks at the corner of my eye, surprising me with its sudden insistence. It's silly, I chastise myself, but the adamantine wall around my heart is fragile today, threads of fear and isolation weaving through every beat. I turn away from the window, blinking rapidly, as the room seems to close in around me, narrowing down to this singular moment of vulnerability. But somewhere inside, amid the debris of my tumultuous emotions, a flicker ignites. It's a small thing, hardly more than a whisper, but it's there, stubborn, promising. Determination. The word itself is a balm, smoothing the jagged lines of my anxious heart. If emptiness is a canvas, then by God, I will paint it with all the hues of fierce survival. I will stitch together my identity outside the enveloping cocoon of parental approval and inherited expectations. A thin smile tugs at my lips with a kind of fragile bravado. I bend to open the box, resolute fingers lifting away the flaps to reveal its contents. The trinkets and totems of my choosing. They're my past, and they're my future, what I've carried with me and what will now carry me forward. Placing a photograph on the dusty mantel, I step back and inhale deeply, letting the tentative stirrings of a life truly my own fill my lungs. The tiny apartment no longer feels quite so barren. Maybe it's the light. Or maybe, I allow the thought to unfurl. It's the first brushstroke on my empty canvas. The past is with me, but it is not me. I close my eyes for a moment, grounding myself in my resolve. The next steps, uncharted and uncertain, beckon me. I wake breathless, the echoes of old laughter lingering like ghosts in the corners of my mind. It's so thick, I almost believe it. Like if I reached out, I'd touch the remnants of warmth I once took for granted, as if the past could become tangible once more. But the reality remains. It is only a dream, an ephemeral echo. The dream begins with light seeping through the kitchen window, casting playful shadows that dance across the table where we used to gather, Mom pouring orange juice, Dad flipping pancakes. The smell so real, I can taste the syrupy sweetness on my tongue. My brother darts under the table, our little dog yipping at his heels as he shouts something I can't quite make out. Laughter rumbling low and infectious, the kind only shared among those who truly belong to you. I blink and the scene shifts, a kaleidoscope of cherished chaos. The living room now, a fortress made of cushions, brightly colored forts that were only brought down by dinner, or a mother's gentle insistence. The TV hums somewhere distant, a cartoon melody weaving through our giggles. Mom's eyes, soft and warm, always seemed to say we were her world, even without words. They radiated a peace that filtered all the way through to the deepest crevices of our home, making me feel invincible. Yet just as I reach out to hold on to that feeling, a sharp jolt yanks me back, a reminder of the present's cruel unraveling. Suddenly, I'm outside, the air crisp with autumn and the crunch of leaves beneath our feet. We're at the park, swinging so high the sky seems closer. Dad's voice, strong and encouraging, pushes me higher, higher, until I feel like I can touch the clouds. But behind his laughter, I begin to notice the cracks, the worry lines that deepen and hint at strains beneath the surface. I hadn't seen them then, hadn't understood their implication, but in this dream, they're glaringly obvious, a dark stroke on an otherwise golden painting. Reality intrudes, a howling wind ripping through the scene. I am aware of an ache that has taken residence in my chest, the bitter knowledge that these are only smoky figments, remnants of a past that feels more like fiction as waking life creeps in. Everything moves with dreamy slowness, memory and dream blending in a way that teeters on the edge of comfort and cruelty. In another flash, we're around the table again, candlelight flickering, casting long, wavering shadows. The mood is jovial, secure, but an underlying thread of tension wraps around us, unnoticed then but clear in retrospect. It suffocates the laughter, weighs the air like a restless ghost, whispering warnings I was too young to heed. Wishes buried in jokes, hopes hidden behind smiles that never quite reached their eyes, back then. The dream stutters, the walls of our home warping into something unrecognizable, cold, silent. No laughter now, just echoes that can't fill the vacancy. I call out, but my voice is swallowed by the emptiness, a void where love once sang. I wake up, heart pounding, the room around me foreign and sharp-edged. The echoes fade, leaving only longing in their wake. Each breath feels heavy, laden with the loss of that fading warmth, like watching something vibrant slowly wither. I shift in bed, trying to shake off the tendrils of the dream, but their grasp remains, an unsettling reminder of what I can never return to. I'd been nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee in the corner of the small cafe, the kind of place where the whispers of grinding beans mix with quiet conversations and the comforting hiss of the espresso machine. Only the flickering candlelight separated the average evening from something that felt sacred. Each sip burned away the chill, both outside and in me, a meager attempt at turning solitude into solace. When the door swung open with a jingle, pulling a draft in with the shadow of a stranger, I scarcely glanced up. The world had turned itself mighty small lately, shrinking down to fit into the walls I'd built to keep everyone at bay. But when I heard my name, soft yet tinged with excitement, I froze. It was a voice I hadn't heard in years, one I'd never expected to fill the stagnant air surrounding me again. Is it really you? The familiar lilt cut through my isolation like warm honey, and I looked up to find Rebecca standing there, a half-smile as cautious as a bird on a wire. My answer was awkward, stuck halfway between a nod and a gasp. "Becca," I said finally, my voice hoarse from lack of use in any genuine conversation. She seemed uncertain for a split second. Then her expression softened into something like understanding as she slipped into the chair opposite me without waiting for an invitation. I almost didn't recognize you. It's been how long? Her gaze was steady, the sincerity in her eyes unexpected, a tether I hadn't known I craved. Once is a lifetime ago, I murmured, compelled to swipe the table with my thumb as if the varnish held answers to time's cruel rush. Words felt clumsy in my mouth, but with every glance we exchanged, something loosened in my chest. Just then, a barista, young and bright-faced, set a cup in front of her. Becca's fingers curled around the mug, drawing warmth. You know, sometimes the family you choose ends up closer, she said, echoing something that felt big in the smallness of the cafe. Her words hung heavy with sincerity, and an ache I hadn't acknowledged before surfaced. Yeah, sometimes they do, I replied, the hesitation in my voice thinning, replaced by a tendril of something I could only describe as hope. I'd grown accustomed to the cold, the kind where you can't recall the last time you felt anything beyond the numbness. And here was Becca, thawing the edges of me with a simple truth. For the next hour or more, as dusk settled into its navy and purple hues outside the steamed windows, we talked. Not the strained chatter of strangers filling silence, but genuine conversation that felt like slipping on a sweater I had misplaced long ago. We spoke about the years apart, the small victories and the griefs that once defined us, building a bridge with words where only silence had been. With each exchange, a flicker of something unfamiliar yet welcome grew stronger within me. Was it possible, I wondered, to reshape the concept of family, to redraft bonds on our own terms? The idea was foreign but refreshing. Eventually, Becca had to go, obligations tugging at her sleeve, and as she stood to leave, a moment of quiet promise passed between us. In that unspoken agreement, an understanding moved. That distance meant little when the shared roots ran deep. As the bell above the door signaled her departure, a kind of warmth lingered, transforming the cafe from just another refuge into a sanctuary. I watched her through the smudged panes, feeling the gentle beginnings of healing, like sunlight breaking through a forest canopy. The past wouldn't vanish, nor would the scars from connections lost. But here was the start, a thin but vital thread sewing itself into the fabric of my solitude, transforming it into shared resilience. The door hadn't closed on me completely after all. The air felt different here, not in the cliched fresh start kind of way, but in the gentler rustle of leaves and the clear, open sky. It was a softer contrast to the clutter of memories back home, the kind that clustered in dark corners of your mind and tugged at the edges of your heart with relentless tenacity. As I sat on that park bench, the tranquility wrapped around me like an old, comforting shawl. My journal lay open on my lap, its pages rippling slightly in the breeze, as if eager to swallow the next spill of ink. I've learned that the heart can mend in areas left barren by those you once loved. I wrote slowly, letting the reality of it seep into my bones. Morning was a battlefield. I'd stumbled, knelt, and pushed my way through. It had nearly bled me dry. But seated here, I felt a quiet resilience growing in the spaces once occupied by hurt. A toddler's laughter floated over, and I glanced up. Nearby, a small boy chased a runaway ball, his father trailing behind with the easygoing patience of a man who had long learned to cherish these tiny, wonder-filled moments. I caught their eye as they passed by and shared a tentative smile, one grounded in a shared understanding of simple joys. It wasn't envy what I felt. No, it was something softer, like the first time sunlight touched a heart gone cold for too long. I turned my attention back to the journal, my fingertips grazing the edges of its pages tenderly, as if unsure whether the words I was about to write would hold their weight. Family. The concept had twisted and transformed in my mind like smoke, intangibly solid, and yet feverishly escaping my grasp. The years had taught me that family was more than names entwined by blood. It was about the moments, the shared laughter, the little battles fought and won, and sometimes, painfully, forever lost. As an old woman jogged past, I wondered how many years she'd had, how many stories were etched into the lines of her smile. Hers was a frame filled with a history I longed to paint new, one where heartaches were merely the background brushes amidst larger, more vibrant strokes. The journal beckoned again, pulling me into its untouched expanse. The pen felt comfortable in my grip as it danced across the page. Strength is in the believing. I dared to scrawl, not in the needing. Each letter a tiny release, uncaging the heart I've been afraid to set free, and with it, an unexpected whiff of liberation replaced the stench of previous despair. I paused, absorbing the strange yet comforting truth of my own revelations. My skin tingled as if new, healed over the scars left by betrayed hopes and forsaken dreams. It was as if a shedding had occurred, an evolution manifested within these uncertain lines I'd begun to draw anew. The sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow across the landscape, and as the shadows grew long, they did not intimidate. Instead, they seemed like gentle companions, willing to walk beside me into this new beginning. A few pages back, I'd cataloged the wounds, both fresh and those long past their expiration, ones I thought inscribed forever within my soul. How startling it felt to realize that healing did not demand a sequence, nor was it bound by the linear passage of time. Some begins with endings, some in the in-betweens we seldom acknowledge. With one last thoughtful glance at the park's fading brilliance, I closed the journal and cradled it close, like a tender secret not yet ready for the world. Rising, my head was held a little higher, shoulders unburdened by the ghosts I'd once allowed to weigh me down. The path home stretched ahead, and it didn't frighten me. Not anymore. And so, I stepped forward into the growing dusk, the promise of new tomorrows lighting my way. The phone buzzes softly against the table, a tiny earthquake in the stillness of my room. I stare at the screen, my father's name glaring back at me, wrapped in a mix of anticipation and dread. A message from him is an event, a meteor in an otherwise predictable orbit of silence. I never expected to hear from him again after everything crumbled. With a deep breath, I tapped the screen, the message fragmenting my careful facade of indifference. His words glow starkly. I've been thinking about you. Just 6 words. And yet they weigh a ton, each letter a reminder of past heartache mingled with a sliver of hope. Hope I've sworn countless times not to entertain again. I lower myself onto the edge of the bed, holding the phone as if it were a fragile bird, a delicate creature I might crush with the wrong move. His message continues, a hesitant confession cloaked in riddles. I'm proud of all you've accomplished. Not exactly an apology, not quite an embrace. Just enough to twist the knife of uncertainty deeper, yet tug gently at the ropes binding my guarded heart. The rain taps against the window, a symphony of whispers urging me to respond, to find a way to knit together the ragged edges of what once was. There's a chill in the air creeping into my skin, cool and insistent. It competes with the warmth of nostalgia that suddenly floods me, unbidden, unwelcome, yet impossible to ignore. I can almost hear his voice in the room, that deep timbre that used to fill our home with laughter and, sometimes, with reprimands packed as tightly as dreams gone sour. My thumb hovers over the keyboard. I'm not sure what I want to say, what I need to convey. Is forgiveness an option? Am I even ready to unravel the mess we made so long ago? Why now? Echoes in my mind, and I try to picture him reading it, his own reflection staring back at him in the dim light of his study. Would he be sitting as I am, battling 2 halves of a broken heart, with shaky resolve? I type slowly, carefully. Thanks. Didn't expect to hear from you. I watched the words parade across the screen, 3 sentences loaded with layers of hidden meaning. They feel like stones I'm tossing across a vast expanse of time and loss, hoping for some kind of ripple, some small acknowledgement that could mean everything or nothing at all. Looking out at the freshly painted sky, newly darkened by storm clouds, I can't help but wonder what he imagined this message would unleash. It's a tiny olive branch extended across a battlefield littered with years of hurt and unspoken truths. The screen dims as I wait for a response. Every second stretches infinitely, taut with an unspoken plea for connection. Moments become hours in my head, a swirling vortex of what-ifs and could-have-beens. It's a tension that presses at my temples, pushing against the barriers I've erected, whispering at the defenses I've chosen to fortify my life with. My heart drums a staccato rhythm inside my chest, fretting and hoping in equal measure. Would I be willing to feel joy in hearing from him again? Or was this message just another testing ground for pain? It's not an apology, I murmur, phone clutched tightly, but perhaps it's a start. And there it is, the first fragile thread of cautious optimism weaving into the tapestry of my thoughts. An invitation masked with pride, just enough to keep the door slightly ajar, slightly intimidating, slightly hopeful. There's something raw and liberating about articulating this tiny flicker of a chance aloud. Maybe that's its own kind of healing, one that doesn't cleanly erase the scars but recognizes their power to forever remind us of where we've been and how far we might still be willing to go. The room buzzed with chatter, forks clinking against porcelain, the usual din of our family gatherings. But beneath the surface, tension thrummed like a taut wire. I stood against the kitchen counter, watching them all. It was the first time we'd all seen each other since that breaking point months ago, the moment I finally put the past on trial. My mother moved through the crowd with manufactured serenity, her smile too wide, her laugh too bright. Dad hovered at the edges, nursing a drink, his face a mask of stoic resolve. They were performers in this painstakingly choreographed dance, this relentless charade of normalcy. I wondered if they saw past the gloss to the unresolved fractures deep beneath. I felt something cool and sharp press into my palm. Amelia, my younger sister, had sneaked up beside me, slipping me a small silver keychain, the one I'd given her when she got her first car. It was an unspoken signal, her attempt at a bridge and understanding. She glanced at me, her eyes brimming with cautious hope. "You ready?" she murmured. I nodded, the weight of what was about to happen sinking into my bones. We moved together toward the center of the room, where the walls seemed to tighten around us. Conversations stuttered and ceased, heads turning slowly in unison to where we stood. Heart pounding, I cleared my throat. It felt like wading through quicksand, but I steadied myself, gripping Amelia's hand for support. "This needs to end," I began, my voice breaking the heavy silence like a church bell at midnight. "We can't keep pretending everything's fine. It's time we all faced what's been tearing us apart." My father shifted, a slight twitch in his jaw. His eyes met mine, the challenge unmistakable. My mother, her knuckles tight around a glass, opened her mouth, but I raised a hand to silence her. I needed to say this first. All of it. I released the chains that bound me to that dark past. I said, my fingers unconsciously touching the small crescent-shaped scar on my wrist. A remnant of battles fought, both internal and external. No more chains, only threads. A pause, and then the room sighed. A collective exhale as something shifted, almost imperceptibly. It was a fragile plea for understanding without words, a tightrope of emotional history spanning back years of hurt and neglect. "We need each other as we are," I continued, the vulnerability scraping at my chest, not as the perfect image we tried to uphold. There was a beat of silence, and then Amelia squeezed my hand, grounding me, sharing this burden. Her eyes were bright, lips curving upward slightly, as if urging the others to embrace this precarious step forward. My mother's expression wavered, as if she were on the edge of a precipice. Her lips parted, the words soft and measured. We didn't realize how much you'd endured alone. We're sorry, truly." It wasn't a sweeping declaration, but it was honest. A raw acknowledgement of past mistakes. My father's gaze softened, the battle lines of his face relaxed into something painfully tender. When his arm went around my mother's shoulders, there was no resistance in her posture. It was a momentary stillness, a reclamation of unity, however fractured. "I know we can't erase what's happened," my father said, and for the first time his voice cracked. "But maybe we can start to mend it, together." The emotional threads in the room pulled tighter, weaving towards something new, tentative but promising. Amelia's grip on my hand loosened as she stepped closer to them, part of this evolving tableau of renewed connection. I looked at them, this family drawn tightly around the labor pains of a new possibility, and felt a tentative warmth spread through the cold knots in my chest. "Yeah," I agreed softly, letting the words breathe into the space between us. "Maybe we can."